Welcome to the end of the world. You already feel it. You don't need a preacher to tell you. You don't need a headline to confirm it. You don't need another crisis to prove it. You feel it in your nervous system. Something is collapsing. Something is unstable. And the world's answer to that instability has been therapy. Therapy culture has exploded. Healing culture has exploded. Trauma language has exploded. Everyone is processing. Everyone is unpacking. Everyone is working on themselves, and everyone is in therapy. And that sounds like progress. It sounds like awareness. It sounds like evolution. It sounds like maturity. But I want to ask you something that almost no one asks. Is therapy killing the false self? Or is it stabilizing it? Is it leading you to death? Or is it helping you cope? Because those are not the same thing. There is a version of healing that does not threaten the ego at all. There is a version of therapy that makes the false self more articulate, more self-aware, more emotionally intelligent, more complex, but never dead. You learn your trauma language. You learn your attachment style. You learn your coping patterns, and you learn your triggers. You learn your boundaries. And then you go back into the same world. With a slightly upgraded identity, you are now the healing one. You are now the traumatized one. You are now the neurodivergent one. You are now the survivor. And nothing has died. The false self just has better vocabulary. Now hear this carefully. Therapy is not evil. There is good that happens there. There is real safety that can happen there. There are real people trying to help. But therapy as an institution operates inside a system, and systems protect themselves. Therapy's primary function structurally is not to end the false self. It is to make you functional again inside the world. It is to stabilize you, to regulate you, to return you to productivity, to return you to participation, to return you to society. It is life support, and life support is not resurrection. Now here is where it gets harder. If therapy rarely kills the false self, then we have to ask a more dangerous question. Where did the false self begin? Because children are not born anxious. They are not born shame-based. They are not born performative. They are not born dissociated. Children adapt. They adapt to survive. They adapt to the emotional climate around them. They adapt to their parents' nervous systems. They adapt to what is safe and what is not safe. They adapt to unspoken rules. They adapt to tension. They adapt to volatility. They adapt to emotional absence. They adapt to control. They adapt to fear. And that adaptation becomes personality. And that personality becomes symptom. And then one day that child is sitting in therapy, and the therapist is working on the child. And no one is asking the most obvious question. Why is the child the patient? Why is the child the one in the chair? Why is the child the problem? If a child is anxious, who taught them anxiety? If a child is dysregulated, whose nervous system were they wired into? If a child is acting out, what environment are they acting out inside of? And this is where we begin to see something that most people do not want to see. We live in what we call a parental society, and we are not naming it to accuse, we are naming it to diagnose. A parental society is a civilization structured around adult ego. Adults design institutions. Adults control systems. Adults fund therapy. Adults authorize treatment. Adults define what is normal. Adults define what is disordered. And when a child begins to manifest symptoms, the system protects the adult. Not because adults are evil monsters, but because systems protect power. And adults hold power. Parents pay the therapist. Parents sign the forms. Parents bring the child in, and the therapist works on the child. This is not a conspiracy. It is system logic. The child adapts to survive. The adaptation becomes problematic. The system intervenes, but the root is rarely touched, because touching the root would mean confronting the parent, and confronting the parent would mean confronting generational trauma. And confronting generational trauma would mean confronting adult shame. And shame is what adults are running from. Now, Here is the part that will be hard to hear. Parents love their children, but love buried under unexamined fear becomes control. And control passed down generationally becomes toxicity. And toxicity justified as protection becomes harm. And harm unexamined becomes culture. And culture unexamined becomes normal. And normal becomes invisible. And now you have a civilization of adults who believe they are protecting children while unconsciously passing down the very wounds they never faced. This is not about hatred, this is about clarity. A victim can become a perpetrator. A perpetrator was once a victim. That does not erase responsibility, but it explains behavior. If your parent controlled you because they were controlled, and their parent controlled them because they were controlled, then somewhere someone has to stop. Somewhere someone has to feel the shame instead of projecting it forward. Because here is the truth. Shame avoided becomes projection. Projection becomes scapegoating. Scapegoating becomes labeling. Labeling becomes diagnosis. Diagnosis becomes identity. Identity becomes life. And nothing has died, and this is why Christ says, remove the plank from your own eye. He is not being poetic. He is diagnosing projection. Stop pointing outward. Look inward. And then he says something even more dangerous. Become like little children. What does that mean? It means drop the adult ego. Drop the authority posture. Drop the performance of certainty. Drop the illusion that you know what is best. Children are present. Children are open. Children are direct. Children are honest. Adults are defended. Adults are guarded. Adults are strategic. Adults are projecting. In a parental society, adults are children in arrested development, holding power, and that is why therapy culture can never fully heal the system, because therapy operates inside a parental structure. It can soothe the symptoms, it can name the trauma, it can offer coping strategies. But unless the adult ego dies, the generational transmission continues. And now we have to say something clearly. Some parents do not want to see this, because seeing it means feeling guilt. And guilt is heavy, but guilt is not condemnation. Guilt is information. Guilt is the nervous system saying, I see it. And if you can sit with guilt, instead of projecting it, something in you can mature. We are not here to humiliate you. We are not here to shame you into submission. We are here to tell you the truth that no one in power wants to say. If children are in therapy, we must look at the parents. If society is unstable, we must look at the adults running it. If the world feels like it is collapsing, we must ask what has been built on unexamined ego. The end of the world is not nuclear, it is psychological. It is the end of inherited false identity. It is the end of generational projection. It is the end of adult ego masquerading as wisdom. And yes, that will feel like death, because it is death. But death is not annihilation. Death is the end of what was never real. And when a parent finally says, I was wrong, I passed something down, I did not see it, I need to look at myself. That is the beginning of resurrection. That is the moment generational curse stops. That is the moment the child no longer has to carry what the parent refused to feel. And that is terrifying. Because it means you cannot hide behind your intentions. Good intentions do not erase unconscious harm. Love without awareness can wound, and that is hard. But it is also freeing. Because if you are not evil, if you are unconscious, then you can wake up. If you are not doomed, and if you are immature, then you can mature. If you are not condemned, and if you are defended, then you can drop the defense. This is not about blaming parents. This is about ending the pattern. And ending the pattern requires someone to be strong enough to feel what was avoided. That is what we mean when we say, welcome to the end of the world. The world built on projection is ending. The world built on scapegoating children is ending. The world built on adult ego is ending. And you can panic, or you can sit, you can defend, or you can look, you can argue. or you can feel. And if you feel exposed right now, if you feel naked, if you feel seen, that is not destruction. That is the beginning of honesty. And honesty is the beginning of peace. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to fix everything today. But you do have to stop pretending. You do have to stop blaming outward. You do have to stop using therapy as a shield for deeper death, because therapy cannot save you. Only surrender can. And surrender is not collapse into despair. It is collapse into truth. This episode is not the end of this thread. This is the beginning of something deeper. Because if parental society is real, then we must look at power. If generational trauma is real, then we must look at inheritance. If adult ego is the root, then we must look at authority. And that is where we are going next. But for now, sit here. If you are a parent, sit with what surfaced. If you are a child, sit with what you carried. If you are both, sit with the complexity. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to walk you through the death that leads to life. Welcome to the end of the world. Stay.